Hi, this is Troxel. In today's tutorial, we had a question on the forum that asked how to move the last keyframe to the end of an event, and they wanted to know how to do this on both pan crop and effects. And so, pan crop is actually pretty easy. The effects, we got a little bit of work to do, but we'll figure that out. Let me know what you'd like to see in future tutorials, and like and subscribe, and let's see how we can do this. So here we have our script. We've got all of our normal stuff at the top here. And then we set our myVegas equals Vegas. And then we start going through our kind of normal routine here for each track, my track and myvegas.project.tracks. And since we're looking at video effects, we're going to check to see is my track video. So if my track.is video, then for each video event, v-event in mytrack.events, now we're only going to look at selected events, and then we're going to look at both pan crop and effects and move the last keyframe of anything to the end of the event. So for pan crop, we want to look at the vevent.videomotion.keyframes.count. By default, every event's going to have one keyframe. And so if it's greater than 1, then we know we have multiple keyframes. So what we want to do is now get the last keyframe. So video motion keyframe variable called kf equals videomotion.keyframes, and then the one that we want is videoevent.videomotion.keyframes.count minus 1. Remember, all of them are 0 based. So if there's 2 keyframes, we want to get the keyframe numbered 1. And then all we have to do is set the keyframe.position equals the video event.length. We're done. So for pan crop, that's pretty easy. Now for effects, not quite so easy. So here, for each effect, which I just called EFF in video event.effects, first thing, this is only going to work with OpenFX effects. So if you have an older DirectX effect, this won't work at all. So our first check is this effect an OFX effect? If it is, then we get our OFX effect, which I just called OFX, from EFF.OFX_effect. Now we need to go through every parameter in that effect. So for each OFX parameter, which is OFX parm, and OFX.parameters, the first thing I want to do is go ahead and skip some that we don't need to look at. So if the OFX.parm.name is not presets, and the label is not preset, and the parameter type is not page, let's go ahead and bring this down, and the parameter type is not group, and the parameter type is not a push button. There's no need for us to even look at it if it's one of these pieces. If it is not any of those, we want to check to see if this OFX parm is animated. If it's not animated, then they can't have multiple keyframes. So there's no even need to even look at it if it's not animated. Now here comes the fun part. Now we have to look at each different parameter individually by the type of parameter it is. So I have a switch here, and I look at the OFX parm.parameter type. I'm going to convert that to a string, and then we have to do each type separately. So if it is a type RGB, then we have to get an OFX RGB parameter from the OFX parm.name. Then we look at our keyframes. If our keyframes.count is greater than 1, then we're going to get an OFX RGB keyframe, and we're going to get that from keyframes.count minus 1, just like we did with the pan crop. And then we set the time of that keyframe to video event.length. Now that's just one type of parameter. So now we have to do the same thing with RGB. Next, we have to do the same thing with double 2D, double 3D, integer, integer 2D, integer 3D, choice, Boolean, string, and custom. Now the good news is the procedure is exactly the same. For example, with string, we get our OFX string parameter, and we get it from OFX.OFXParm name. Then we check to see how many keyframes there are. If it's greater than 1, we get the last keyframe. In this case, it's an OFX string keyframe, and we just set the time equal to the video event.length. So we're doing the same thing no matter what type of keyframe it is. We just have to do each type of keyframe separately. And then finally we have our default, which case we do nothing. So we have all of the various types listed here. So let's look at these one at a time. Here I have an event with pan crop. So we've got our initial keyframe is full screen. Then we have a second keyframe that's zoomed in toward the upper right hand corner. Now what we want the script to do is move this from here over to here, over to the end, and we will run the script. Now you can see there is no longer a keyframe here, and the keyframe has been moved over to here. Now let's select this one and we'll open up the effects. Notice I have that one animated, this one is animated, this one is animated, this one is not animated, and this one is not animated. So we see our 3 that are listed here, our 3 keyframes that are listed there. And so you can see initially it is full screen, and then over here it is kind of zoomed in, but we want all of these to once again be moved over to there. So let's run the script again and see what happens. Now you can see there's no longer a keyframe here, and the keyframe has been moved over to the end. So that's how you can go through and manipulate the position of the keyframes, and moving them to the end is really a fairly easy process, especially with pan crop, because you can access it pretty much directly. But with the effect keyframes, it's a matter of going through every individual type and then moving each one individually. And so it's not a difficult process. It's just kind of time consuming to go through to put all the different type parameters in the list. So I hope you like this tutorial. Let me know what you'd like to see in the future. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next tutorial. Please sign up at www.JETDV.com and subscribe on YouTube to get further notifications on when new videos are presented.